Welcome, welcome. You know the nature of consciousness, which is in truth what you are. For it is so clear that every single thing that happens, it is you that is conscious of it. The misidentification lies in perceiving the object as yourself instead of what is aware of the object, perceiving the mind body as yourself as opposed to what is aware of the mind body. What is aware of the mind body is not a perceiving mechanism. Perception, all perception is change over time. But what is time? What is time? Your existence is always, only, ever now. There is no time to now. When there is no time, there is no change. It's like saying when there is no relationship with mind, there is the taste of the changeless self that is conscious of itself. So this mind, body, organism goes through its day perceiving. It's what it does. It's a perceiving machine. It perceives change over time, and it perceives time. While the nature of consciousness is always, only, ever now. So in investigation, investigating what is this change over time that creates the experience of the separate one? What is change over time? If you dive into the experience of perception, dive directly into it. Dive into the perceiver. What is felt is perceptionless, and it's everywhere, and it's conscious, and it's not an object, but the feeling of the heart. The feeling of the heart is the recognition of the consciousness that you are. And what is necessary is this constant self-reminding, like with every breath, self-reminding. And the self-reminding is not a seeking, it's not a changing, it's not an improvement. It's feeling what is. And what is everything. What is everything. And the nature of what is that it is conscious. And what it is conscious of is everywhere. And what is everywhere has no location and is not in time. It's changelessly now. It's now. The words appear in time. Understanding appears in time. Perception appears in time. But what is aware of all of this is always now. Always now. And it can be felt. Why can it be felt? Because it is the nature of what you are. There has been this forgetting of who you are based on the habit of this stimulus response program that repeats itself. And it's always trying to pull the attention. The attention from who? The attention for who? For the I story. And what is the I without a story? What is the I without a story? What is discovered is that there is no individual. There is no time, it's always now. There is no location, for there is no time. Location appears in time, but time appears in the unchanging feeling of consciousness, of yourself. You know the nature of consciousness, which is what you are, the changeless nature of what you are, is infinite. And this can be felt. The infinite nature of yourself can be felt. The unchanging, locationless nature of yourself can be felt. You can't get closer to it because it is not in the arena of distance. There's no one to take ownership of it because it is totality. It is itself. And this is where the celebration comes from releasing the hypnosis of this stimulus response program that appears to exist in linear time, and just simply feeling in the immediacy of now the locationless taste of the conscious awareness that is conscious of itself, that is in truth yourself. And when consciousness realizes its nature, it is not temporary, it is eternal. When you believe you are experiencing consciousness, this is an opening. There are openings and closings in the mind body mechanism. In the opening phase, there is a taste that is closer, but the experience is that there is someone experiencing now. But if you look for that someone is an appearance. There is something aware of that appearance. And that awareness is not in time. It does not change. It is not bound to an object, but is unbounded. It is aware of the appearance of objects. But the nature of your heart, the nature of consciousness, is unbounded. It's, it's eternal. The nature of the consciousness that you are is eternal. Just to bask in your nature is self-remembrance. When the mind has, or the mind body has an opening, there is the experience of consciousness. But in truth, there is no such thing as the experience of consciousness. Experience is changing, and it's changing to a character that cannot be found. But the discovery is that you are never the character. It was always an appearance based on identifying with a program. When you realize you are not the mind body, but that which is aware of the mind body, and you feel yourself, what is actually happening is consciousness is waking up to its true nature, to its true nature. And this is pure celebration. And it's here now. It's always here now. It's eternally here now. There is nothing the character needs to do. The character is an appearance. There really is no character. If you investigate the character, you never find anything. It is an appearance that appears in time, and time is an appearance of the mind. But the consciousness is aware of all of this. And when it begins to realize itself, this shift is permanent because it is not the character having an experience that comes and goes. It is consciousness realizing its own nature. And consciousness is not in time. The recognition of its nature is permanent because consciousness is permanent. And the discovery is, I am not an object that is perceived. I am the subject that is aware. And then the awareness falls into itself naturally. And this is the waking up of conscious awareness. It is the waking up of the self. It is the grace of the life. Because when the self begins to realize itself, there is this rippling effect that creates this intensification of wakefulness that ripples out infinitely, infinitely. And this can be felt. The aliveness can be felt. The joy can be felt. The light of consciousness can be felt. Always right now. Always in the eternal present moment. So the attention naturally is not localized. This is conditioning. When the attention is not localized, the mind body may move, may speak, but it's not where the attention is. And it becomes very clear it is doing it itself, just like the heart beats itself. You don't beat the heart, you just know it's beating. It's the same thing with everything. When you are connected with yourself, there is an awareness that the mind body is moving and talking, but your taste is the taste of what is centerless, formless, locationless, bodiless. And this taste, when it is true, is a permanent taste. Does not change over time, for there is no time in it. It cannot be forgotten because it's not an experience of the mind body, but it is the self's recognition of its own self, right here, right here. And then you get to feel the celebration of light recognizing its nature. And it becomes so joyous and so alive and so vibrant. Your nature is not a doing. In your eternal nature, there is no such thing as doing. When there is the self realizing itself eternally, there is no doing in that. And then the actions that appear and the appearing play appear without the experience of doership. The identification is set free. The mind's belief is if this happens, the body will just sit like a lump, not do anything. It still acts. It just acts without doing. It acts without the illusion of someone. Its actions are just like the wind or the surf in the ocean. It's just doing itself. Like the beating heart. You're aware it is beating, but your attention is not on that. You are the subject that is aware of itself. When you dive into the subject, instead of being identified as an object, when you dive into who is aware of the objects, the self shakes off the amnesia and realizes itself eternally, endlessly, totally, completely. The discovery is that no one awakens because everyone is just a stimulus response program of distraction that appears in time. But what is discovered is you actually are wakeful consciousness. And consciousness, wakeful consciousness, is without separation. It's without separation. It's undivided. And this is felt. Cannot be taken because it is yourself. It cannot be affected because it is not something. It can be tasted as the gratitude and beauty of your being. Just to feel it. Just to feel what is conscious of its own nature. It's like consciousness, it's like it folds back into itself. It becomes more and more sensitive to its own nature. And then the nature of consciousness becomes more and more alive. It's the grace of who you are. It's the beauty of who you are. It's the freedom of who you are. And then the comings and goings and the appearance of the play stop having all this significance. It's just ebbing and flowing, passing through an infinite space of the eternal heart. Infinite, an infinite, infinite space of the eternal heart. Such nectar that is yourself. Eventually, there is the discovery that every tiny speck that appears to move is being ordained, that everything in the daydream is your dream, it's your karma playing out. But when you see that the pawns are your dream, including the character that is called you, when it is seen as your dream, everything, your dream, all the pawns playing roles that always repeat themselves, set up to free you from this hypnosis, set up for you to witness the whole thing is just a stimulus response mechanism that has the habit of drawing attention. But it's all appearing. And it's not about the appearance changing, it's about recognizing what you are and what you're not. What you are not defined by is every object, everything perceived, everything that changes. What you are is the subject that is aware. And when the awareness falls into itself, it becomes enlivened. It becomes enlivened. The whole unified field of consciousness becomes enlivened. And this is an endless journey that is not in time, that is not in location, that is in consciousness.